Hi, I just want to do this short video for those of you that can't make it to our Hangouts. This video talks about Lesson 4, Changing an Attitude, and we'll just briefly talk about some of the things in the reading and talk about the worksheets. So this lesson describes attitudes. We all have an attitude. It's, maybe a view on something like abortion or the death penalty. It could be how we look at things like teenagers terrible drivers, or issues, Mount Soledad, or maybe the seals in La Jolla. All sorts of things. These are attitudes. Attitudes can be affective. It's how the attitude makes us feel. So I'm afraid of scary movies. It could be behavioral, how it makes us ask, well, I won't go to a scary movie with you because I don't like them. Or cognitive, how it makes us think, I think that they're not healthy. Okay, so those are all different components of an attitude, and how strongly these components are felt in your mind is how firm you have this attitude entrenched. Attitudes are important. They provide information about the world. They help us with our identity. They help us become acceptable within our own groups. If you are a certain political party, having those similar attitudes make you appreciate each other a little bit more. And they protect our self-esteem. If it's something we believe, if we have that trait, then we believe that we are better. So attitudes are important. They can be healthy or they could be unhealthy. And when they're unhealthy, you want to try to change them. And that's what this lesson is about. Discovering attitudes, and then deciding whether they are good, healthy ones or unhealthy, and then changing the ones that aren't. Okay, so the types of attitudes that you have: opinions, your beliefs about something; your values, broad goals like freedom; and worldviews like your liberal or you have human rights views. Now, the first thing about attitudes is that they can be measured. They could be measured directly or indirectly. So an example of direct measurement of attitudes is something like a survey. So if you click on this link, if you're online, you will get to a survey. And this survey has no value whatsoever except to help you identify what some attitudes are, and maybe sort of see what our general attitudes are. This is not something that can be used in any type of study. It's very it's very loosely done. There's no identification, so there's no way of proving whether somebody's being accurate or not. But nevertheless, it is a direct method. Ask what the attitude is. That's basically one way to find out somebody's attitude. Another type of way that it could be measured is indirectly. An example of this is, for example, they show you a picture and then you interpret that picture. And by interpreting that picture, that isn't necessarily how you think that picture is. It's actually more of a reflection of your attitude. For example, the worksheet shows us a picture of a young woman sitting at a mirror. Now, what you think that is very important in determining what your attitudes are. If you see her as sad because she's been stood up on a date, that's one thing. If you see her as excited about going to something fun, that's another one. You look at the picture and you interpret it as you can. And that interpretation might help you to determine your attitudes. All right, changing attitudes. You can change attitudes, but it will take time. One way attitudes are changed is, for example, during elections. There's political advertising, and you may be for one political party or one person, and then you might read something about them or someone else and you change it. So some attitudes can be changed relatively easily. Some of the attitudes we have are unhealthy attitudes, which we should try to change. And you see some of the examples. I don't like to go out after dark. I'm not comfortable in groups. I can't eat at a buffet because I overeat. Now these are unhealthy because someday you might get asked out to a buffet. So what do? Or sometime there might be a really interesting event, but you won't go because it's in a group. In this case, you need to adjust your attitude, maybe weigh the pros and cons, kind of like we've done with emotions. And so that's where this lesson goes next. So I know the heading says just your negative attitudes, but actually in this worksheet number 9, we're going to look at positive attitudes and negative attitudes. So we come down here, or come over here to this sheet, and you just start listing. Now you can list your own, or you can just list general ones, but try to list attitudes that have some significance to you. So it might be you, it might be your friend, it might be your spouse. And then you get some sort of idea which ones are important. You can also write down a bunch of them and then go through and circle the ones that are attributable to you. If you need some help thinking of them, at the bottom are 2 websites. One of them is this Hub Pages one, and so that will take you here, and you have a little bit of reading. Nothing is that quick, but once you scroll down a little bit, you can see a bunch of different types of positive attitudes. Lots and lots of positive attitudes. So look at those positive attitudes and put some on your list, and then see, how many of these you would like to adapt as well. I mean, this is really a fun list to work on, because it would be nice to have a lot of these positive qualities. Okay, likewise, you want to list some negative ones. You can't think of any. Well, if you click on this list, you get to this page, and this will list a few words, and there's not as many, which I guess is good, which describe negative attitudes. So these are all examples of negative attitudes. And you can also go on and read some of the effects of negative attitudes on this link as well. Okay, so that's what you do with that worksheet. You just list the positive and the negatives, and you see how many you can name. Circle the ones that pertain to you if you would like. Okay, now we've done this before with attitudes, or with emotions. So now on worksheet number 10, we're gonna pick the attitude that we would like to change. So we have a negative attitude over there, and we want to change it because it's unhealthy. And so we name what the attitude is, and then we list the advantages of having that attitude and the disadvantages of having that attitude. And then we look at the 2 columns, and we decide which of these columns is stronger. And if the advantages is stronger, that doesn't mean that the attitude is good. It just means you're not ready to change it. We can't change everything all at once. So you realize that, and you realize you're going to work at something else instead. You're not quite ready to change this one. If, on the other hand, your disadvantages outweigh the advantages, well, then that means that this is something you should try to change. And so then you go in and you try to change or modify that attitude, try to eliminate it if you can, and that is what our last part of the lesson is about. Now, there's no worksheets to this. This is just something you're going to do on your own. The first one is really powerful. So you get a little notebook, and you have it with you all the time. And let's say you feel like you're a little bit critical, and you just discovered during the positive and negative that there's a lot of bad things associated, advantages and disadvantages. You'll find there's a lot of negative things associated with being critical. So what you'll do now is you'll have this little notebook, and every time you're critical, you'll make a little mark on this. And you'll do this for 3 weeks. And you might even have a day. It might be a calendar, so you know which day. Now, after the 3 weeks, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see how often you're critical, and it may be a lot. It may not be as many. Maybe you weren't as bad as you thought you were. But then you may also find that as time goes on, you're less critical because you don't want to mark it down. And that's good. And this is really effective for a lot of things we're trying to change. So the self-monitoring is a way that you can see how much you do something and whether or not you want to, whether or not you can cut it down a little bit. The second technique is ask a friend. Maybe no one really realizes you're so critical. Maybe you think you're critical, but no one sees you as critical. In this case, it's a problem of how you view yourself. And, that may be something you need to work on, thinking you're critical when in actuality you're not. On the other hand, maybe they know you're critical and they don't know how to deal with it. Maybe they're a little bit afraid of your critical nature. So you can then maybe talk with a friend and say, well, it's the way I was brought up, and they can help talk you through it. And in fact, if the friend does say you're overly critical, then you can go to this final technique, finding your hidden agenda. So once again, you go through this, you're going to go through a dialogue with yourself that's related to this attitude you're trying to change. So in this case, why am I so overly critical? Is it possible I'm protecting myself from criticism? Was I criticized as a child? How did I feel when I was criticized? Maybe I felt powerless. Does criticizing others return the power to me? So once again, you've gone through this process, you've talked to yourself, and maybe at the end you decide, maybe maybe I am too critical. So try to go through these lessons. I know that it seems like a lot, but try to go through these lessons. Remember, you can download the readings, you can download the worksheets, you can work on them on paper, you can work on them online, but go through the steps because these are powerful tools using your brain that you have made so healthy in the brain fitness programs. Instead of letting all that work go to waste, use that new brain power you have to try to change yourself where it could be changed. So good luck on that.